That will forever make me laugh. Do you know what I was saying?
What were you going to say?
I was saying, do you have anything to say so that we can't get cut off like we usually do right when we go live?
We got cut off. Right?
That's literally all I wanted. And then we got cut off in that segment.
Welcome to Trader's Edge, brought to you by Tradier. I'm Iuorio. That's my trusted sidekick.
Stop it. Just
no, but in all seriousness, I want to make a confession to you. So you guys, and you guys, the people who've been watching us for a year ago, Bobby and I started on massive health kicks. He started a little bit first, and the results of it have been mind-boggling to me. I can run all day. I feel like I'm 40 years old. It's crazy. But today, I go to the convenience store. Literally, I haven't had sugar in 8 months. I'm at the convenience store. I get some raw almonds, and I look and see the Dove Dark Chocolate Bar, and like I reflexively buy it, and I eat it back at my desk, and then I literally feel like crap. Had to call my daughter to confess my sins. She was trying to talk me off the ledge. Do you ever have like slip-ups where you're like a day of just like eating shit, or no?
So I had one today, actually. My father-in-law comes and stays with us in the Chicago winters, comes down here, stays in his room, and then he leaves and goes back to Chicago for the summer. He asked me if I want anything today. My trusty Nespresso Pixie, which I've had for 17 years and has never broken down, died. So I'm on about a half an espresso and a cup of regular coffee, which it tastes like garbage water, if I could quote Ted Lasso. And I said to him, you know what? You're leaving. You're going to the grocery store. Pick me up like a quadruple espresso from Starbucks. I hate Starbucks. I think it's the rape of our culture. I don't hate the stock. We can talk to Kenny about that. But he brought me back I think he picked up the wrong drink because it was a sugary cappuccino.
And you drank it.
He goes, taste it. I'm like, man, it's cappuccino. It just tastes like vanilla milkshake. Yeah. I drank about half of it, and then I chucked the rest. It also felt bad that he bought it for me, so I didn't want to feel bad. You know?
But it's so bad how it tastes. I mean, it's so interesting how our taste buds have changed. Like as I was eating the chocolate, like the first bite tasted good, but the third bite, I was like, Jesus, this is terrible. But anyway, people, thank you guys for joining us. Remember Bobby and I's mission where we were in legacy media for 20 years. We hated legacy media. Legacy media is always pushing you to say something based on some overzealous producer or sponsor. We like a platform that doesn't do that. We might be wrong, but we're honest about our opinions. One thing you can't deny, you might think Bobby and I are full shit, but we have made great, unbelievable contacts along the way. And one of us, our good pal, that's why we titled this show La Casa NASDAQ. And for those of you who haven't had your coffee yet, it's a play on words from La Casa Nostra. And we're not really mob members, which is exactly what mob members would tell you.
Nor is there a mob. It doesn't exist. There's no mob. It doesn't exist.
There's no mob. I don't even know what you guys are talking about. They're some of my friends. But anyway, we are going to bring in now Kenny Polcari, the chief strategist of Slate Stone Wealth. Is that what he calls himself? It's not chief strategist. It's like Grand Poobah. He'll tell us.
Chief market strategist at Slate Stone Wealth. He's also a passionate voice on markets.
He is, and he's so fun to talk
to.
Off
his Twitter.
Lovely human being. Let's bring in Kenny Polcari. I'm not sure calling you a lovely human being was the right thing to say. It didn't feel right on my tongue. We'll cut that out when this show goes live. What's that? Oh, it is live? Oh, okay.
Yeah, all three of us are live on X right now. It's nice to see.
It's the first time I've been live on X. There's a pink circle around my face. It says live. That's pretty cool.
It is awesome. It is fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad you have our buddy Larry's show on in the background. Both Kenny and I have been part of the Larry Kudlow circle for a long, long time, and it's something that I'm quite proud of. I love that man. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we need to talk about Monday, first of all. We need to talk about Mike Arnold called it the tariff tantrum, which I thought was very, very interesting. On the 27th, NVIDIA got absolutely pummeled to the tune of 18% when the DeepSeek thing came out. On the 3rd, we get pummeled. The whole market gets pummeled because of the tariffs. Is this exposing some vulnerabilities in your mind? Big deal, little deal, no deal?
So I got to tell you something. I'm assuming you're asking me right now, Bob.
Yeah. No, I'm a sidekick.
So
he's my sidekick.
Here's what I'm really surprised at, quite honestly. I'm surprised that the market had this visceral reaction on Monday, because it's not like he hasn't been talking about it for 7 months, all during the campaign, before the inauguration, at the inauguration, after the inauguration. He's been talking about it. He's been very clear that here's what has to happen. Otherwise, I'm going to do this. And so he did it. On Friday afternoon, Caroline Levitt came out and said it at 1:30. Unless they come to the table this weekend, and tariffs are being imposed on, Monday morning. So the whole place knew. I think what was happening was, I think they were waiting for an 11th hour deal on Sunday night, to stop the drama. And the 11th hour deal never came. And so the market throws this temper tantrum. I'm sitting there scratching my head going, did I miss something? Because this isn't new information. The market knew this all along, other than the market must have thought there was going to be this last minute 11th hour deal, and it didn't happen. That's why it's throwing a temper tantrum. In fact, I thought it was ridiculous, because in the end, they need us more than we need them. And then what happens is, 2 hours later, she comes out, she meaning Claudia Pardo, Shine Mom Pardo, comes out and says, oh, I had this great conversation. What do you mean you had this great conversation this morning? Did you not have a great conversation the week before? The week before, you could have stopped all this baloney. But whatever
These
reason,
people are all out of their mind. Okay, so here's then my next question to you is, I think Kenny might be gone.
No, he's here. He's here.
Oh, he's here. Okay, so Donald Trump, for all his ballyhooing about tariffs, he has for months and months and months, talks about how he loves tariffs. Tariffs are his favorite word. Every time I hear that bullshit, I think what he's really saying is, I plan on pushing these to get freer trade, and I don't really like tariffs. What do you think?
Well, I definitely think that he's using it as a negotiation tool to get fairer trade, right? I think he's definitely using it to get the fair trade. I'm not sure that he likes them, he doesn't like them. He might like smaller tariffs, like Scott Bessent now likes his whole 2 or 3% tariff deal, global tariff thing, not 25% tariffs necessarily, but Trump's made it quite clear. Unless you guys want to come to the table and talk about fairer trade, then here's what's going to happen. And so I actually think it's okay, because in the end, I don't think that we're all going to end up with 25% tariffs on every country around the world. I just don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. I think people are going to come to the table and say, okay, let's put our heads together and figure out what's fairer. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And so, yes, he bellyaches about it and all that stuff, but guess what? He bellyaches, then he does it, and suddenly people stand up and go, oh shit, I better come to the table and have a conversation. And I actually think that's okay. Right?
I just want to comment. Yeah, I want to comment on tariffs before I ask my question to Kenny. Luke Groman had something that I thought was super interesting. He basically said that this is the biggest shift in monetary flows since the 1971 U.S. reserve status basically took hold, right? And his reasoning is U.S. tariffs reduces, it increases flow of funds from governments to the U.S. in the form of tariffs rather than the form of buying treasuries. Now, I don't want to go into the whole thing that he said, but he essentially said the structure of tariffs theoretically does make it possible to reduce income taxes to U.S. consumers. It theoretically does. There's a lot that has to happen. We have to buy goods from overseas. The world right now invests in U.S. treasuries. Currently, they wouldn't do that. They would send the money to the U.S. in the form of tariffs, and they would invest in gold, which the three of us have all talked about being long the last time the three of us talked together. So I don't want to steal that from Luke Groman, because he's actually coming on our other show in a couple of weeks. And it is like, I'm writing that down to ask him to go through the whole thing of it. And I don't disagree that he doesn't necessarily loves tariffs. I think he loves tariffs the way I love guns. I don't want to shoot people, but I certainly would like to point a gun at a thief coming into my house and have him leave without me having to shoot him.
100%. I think that's a great analogy, actually, right? You don't really want to use them, but if it forces the conversation, if that's the only way the conversation is going to happen, well, then that's the way it's going to happen, right? Because they all had, by the way, plenty of time to sit down and say, well, okay, can we talk about this? They had plenty of time to do that. Now, collectively, the U.S. public and the world are not used to an American president coming in and doing what he said he was going to do on the campaign trail. It's usually just campaign rhetoric. 100%. And
All
I'm going
right.
to tell you something. I think part of the problem is, and we could talk about this, but this will get us off base, is that does she really run the country, or is the country being run by the cartels? Can she, you know what I mean? I think that was part of the problem because, she couldn't just say, I'm going to send troops. The cartels would have killed her, right? So
Yeah.
she needed to go and have a conversation with them and make, figure out a way to look like they're helping so that this doesn't happen. I think that's really what happened, because otherwise, had she just had a conversation with them and decided to do it, they would have killed her. Who's kidding who? They would have killed her.
Exactly.
All right. So my question then goes to tech in general, Kenny. I know that you won't necessarily mention specific names, but when I look at the NASDAQ, something that I looked at today and I put it out to our people here at Path was that we're basically in a consolidation pattern that Mike Arnold described to us yesterday. Mike Arnold is the chief technical strategist at my company, Path Trading Partners, and he's a monthly guest on our other show. And he pointed out we're basically in consolidation. And I looked, if you go back to December 10th of last year, we're basically up 0.2% from that on the NASDAQ, right? It literally hasn't moved. It's just gyrated in a huge range. Right. And I think we have pretty decent tech earnings. We've got good projected revenues. What is the NASDAQ or tech sector specifically waiting for to continue to rally?
I'm not necessarily sure that it's waiting for anything. Somebody else, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I read it this morning. Somebody came out and said the Mag 7 is going to turn into the Lag 7 in 2025, that the Mag 7 is so outperformed for so many years that it's, it needs some time to consolidate. So we may see the Mag 7 really not outperform the way they have been outperforming and consolidate, because they have been stretched. And look, they've been wonderful performers. They've been great performers. But at some point, you and I both know that the trees don't grow to the sky. And at some point, there has to be a consolidation period. This may just be it. I think if you look at what happened to look at this, like the equal weighted S&P is up 3%, right? The S&P is up 3%. The NASDAQ is up 1.9%. So you can see that the Dow's up 5.5%. So you can see that it's broadening out. And so money's not necessarily all being chased into the tech things. I think they are stretched a little bit. Not that I think they're going to collapse, but I actually think this consolidation within this range is probably a very healthy thing.
So to follow up question to Bobby's, then I'll throw it back to you, Bobby, after I ask Kenny this too, is that here's a thesis that I have, is that I do not like our president throwing out these things that throw these volatile shocks through markets. I don't think that that's good policy from a president. However, this is the big however, I do believe that sharp corrections and bear markets are oftentimes born on complacency, months and months of complacency and lack of respect for risk. On occasion, risk is supposed to smack you in the nards, and then you're supposed to remember what that feels like for a long time. So my belief is that this is actually probably helping markets grow stronger in the long run by having someone who takes a stick to them every couple of days.
Yeah. Listen, I think the same thing is that the market has become too complacent, and nobody thinks that there's any issues out there. Nobody thinks that. And then you see suddenly you get hit with maybe kind of an okay headline, not a disaster. And suddenly it creates all this nervousness and angst in the market, because I think people become too complacent. They just think, oh, just buy it here. You don't like anything. Just buy anything and the market's going to go up. I think
there's no way I can get you to use shot to the nards in your description of it at all. If I can't, I can't, but I will keep trying, Bobby.
You called them lovely. I want to put up a chart real quick, and this is MAGS, okay, MAGS, and this is Roundhill's Magnificent 7 ETF. So basically what this ETF does is just holds at different weightings the Magnificent 7. And if you just look at this chart, it objectively is lagging the NASDAQ, right? Yeah. Objectively, where prior it used to lead the NASDAQ. Do you think there's a signal people can take from something like this, or no, Kenny?
No, well, look at this. If you look at that chart, it goes back to, because I'm looking at it on Bloomberg right now, right? I'm actually looking at the Bloomberg Mag 7, but it's in that same consolidation pattern going back to December, just like you said NASDAQ is, right? It's in that same very tight range on the 7, and I just think that tells you that they're all consolidating. I don't think they're gonna fall out of bed, but I do think it's a matter of they need to consolidate. The longer they stay in that pattern without breaking up or breaking down, I think it will be healthier, right? If they break down, that we might be having a different conversation. But I think if they can consolidate in here for a while, the way it appears they are, I actually think that's going to be healthier. And so they may not do a whole lot, right? I think that was the point. I can look it up and see who said the lag 7 today, because I think that was his whole
No,
point.
if you can't remember who said it, you can just take credit for it. Them's the rules.
I said it. I'll take
Damn right you did.
So, Jimmy, to you, when you see a triangle like this, and I'm going to throw this extra line in here because I might look at this a little bit different than everybody else, but when you see a chart like this, do you want to, again, Jimmy's licensing is not for stocks or stock options, but let's say this was an NQ.
Widget.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Let's say this was widget futures, since that's what your licensing is. Does this make you want to buy a straddle, buy a strangle, do something that for a spike in volatility in whatever this asset might be, or no?
Not yet. The triangle's got to narrow a little bit too. I think it's saying too. And this is an interesting question that you asked, because I've been under the belief that, of course, the first half of this year is going to be with crosswinds. Even if we are transitioning from what I thought was awful economic policy to what I think is going to be clearly better economic policy, transition itself, particularly when it's so stark and so drastic, is not something that risk assets tend to like. So there's the force of we're going to deregulate. We're going to lower corporate taxes. Hopefully, by the way, I haven't heard as much talk about that as I'd like over these past couple of weeks, but we're going to get that. But at the same time, we are making just this drastic change, and it can be inelegant. So I think it's supposed to be trading sideways. I think the fact that the stocks haven't fallen apart is actually a pretty good sign. So I think in a couple more, these are daily bars where I'm looking at right here, right?
Yep.
So in a week, if it hasn't broke out either way, then it's time for me to grab a straddle, probably like buy an iron fly, buy a straddle, sell a strangle, which is essentially buying a call spread, buying a put spread. A lot of times these options things aren't as
you're just trying to use fancy terminology to make everybody know how smart you are.
It's like, exactly. So people think I'm smart. I like to use big words because it's a short thing and a middle child thing. I need attention, so I say shit like this. But I'm not ready.
Trust me, I am the middle child. I get the whole thing about needing attention. I am so with you.
Same here. Yeah. So before I get rid of this whole chart setup, since I now have the freedom to put up a chart, this is NVIDIA. What's anybody supposed to do with this, Kenny?
Not even remotely interesting.
I hadn't seen NVIDIA like that. I think you have to. I think NVIDIA has been one of those names that obviously has so outperformed. It broke down here on that deep seek day.
I can't say it either.
Where it created that massive gap. I would not be a seller of NVIDIA here. In fact, I'd be a buyer. I'm looking for it to fill that gap. But then I think it stays again. Look at that range that it had been creating. The high of 144 and the low of really 128. Mm-hmm. That range right there. It's been kind of staying in that range. I suspect it's going to go there again and kind of just stay in that range. Look, their earnings come out the end of February, I think, right? The 28th or something.
It looks like it's Feb 26th.
26th. And so I think you kind of just have to play it. But I'm not upset about that chart at all. I would look at that as a buying opportunity, not a selling opportunity.
See, I don't like to disagree with Kenny because I think he's a smart guy. I think NVIDIA on the 27th of January flinched, and they didn't actually take a punch, but the other guy moved and they flinched. And now they're being viewed as maybe not as perfect as they once were. And they certainly were priced for perfection. So I think a reasonable pullback is, and that looks like about 20% already, by the way, is it? So maybe that is a reasonable pullback.
Yeah, I can measure it real quick from the high.
I bet it's more than
low. It is down 26.2%.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, then forget what I said then. That could be, Kenny's going to be right. Yeah.
Yeah, it might have actually. I'll be baby bear in this scenario and say that to me, this is just right. In other words, to the bull side, the thing that I like about it is it spent a little time below its 200-day moving average, and now it's above it. That's what this sort of, what is this, fuchsia? Anybody know?
It's a lovely color. I'm going to use lovely more.
Yeah. And now it's turning, but the medium-term momentum is still lower. I don't trade off any of these lines, by the way, just for the record, but it does matter to me when something gets below the 200 and then just pops right back above it in 3 days. It means that at least buyers are there.
Yeah, I definitely think buyers are there. Look, it jumped. It was up $6 today, right? It closed at 125. on that headline about Supermicro saying that their Blackwell-based system is ready, and that's all based on NVIDIA chips. So that's a bullish, at least it's a bullish headline. Now let's just see what happens with it, right?
Right.
But to Jimmy's point or your point, whatever, it's traded below the 200 for a while, and now it's above it. So let's just see what happens. But I think it's got to come back and try to fill the gap that it created. When DeepSeek thing happened,
it's a big ass gap.
Yeah, it's a
Like,
huge gap.
16% gap or so. It's about a 16% gap.
It's going to take some time to fill it, but that's what I'm waiting for. So,
Are there any other charts you guys want up before I get rid of this?
No, I was going to ask Kenny, what are you keenly looking at right now as something interesting? We'll pop the chart up.
Separate from this.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm looking at a couple of things. Healthcare, which I think is going to be a good performer this year. It's already up 3.5% year to date, which is probably in the 4th or 5th position, I think, in terms of the sectors. But I'm also very keen, and I'm dipping my toe into the quantum space, right? Because I do think that there is, as much as Jensen Huang says that quantum is 15 or 30 years away, I don't believe that. I do not believe it's that far away. And it's interesting because the day he said that, he was also posting job opportunities for quantum computer programmers to come work at NVIDIA. So I'm very interested kind of in the quantum space. But look, a lot of those stocks are small and mid cap, right? They're really small cap. So they're very volatile. But Rigetti, QUBT, and Sylvia Jablonski at Defiance ETFs has a quantum ETF, QTUM. Is a quantum ETF. Now, what's interesting is it's not completely quantum because she's got Apple and Amazon in there as well to offer some stability. But she also has all these kind of very interesting quantum names. But I think those are longer term plays that you have to be able to have the stomach to ride, right? So I started to dip my toes. I'm not dipping them in real deep at the moment because I don't want to really get my head cut off. But I am dipping my toes in, but from a broader perspective, I think healthcare is going to do well in 2025. I think that if you believe that rates are coming down, then utilities should once again be an outperformer, right? Because rates go below 4% or 3.5%, utilities become very attractive for people that are looking for exposure and income.
So hold it before
this is a healthcare
chart of
ETF.
the XLV up.
Which one is this? The XLV.
XLV, the healthcare ETF, which I've owned for years and years.
Right.
And it's been such a nice form. I love this chart. I love breaking out of that. I want to see tomorrow a little bit of above that green candle. And then I think it could be off to the races. Can you just fill me in with your fundamental story for healthcare, or is it more technical?
Yeah, but wait, hold on a second. Look at this. Look at from January, right? It was January 1st was basically on the low, or December 31st was basically on the low, right?
Gee, look at that thing.
December 19th was the low.
Yeah, was the low. So and it's had a nice move, and like you said, now it's busted up through all three trend lines. Yeah. And now it's just low. No, so it's for me, it's more technical, and it's also as we as a firm think that healthcare is just going to do better because of regulation and some deregulation in the space. But we're looking at the biggest names in the space, right? So we're really talking Merck, Lilly, we're talking Johnson & Johnson. I'm talking like big pharma names, that kind of stuff is the names that we're really focusing on. But I like this one specifically just because of its chart pattern and how it's broken out.
Yeah, love it. Can you put BMI up there, Bobby?
What do you want, Jimmy?
Bristol Myers Squibb.
Yeah, and put in Merck as well. You can put Merck in there too. See now Bristol Myers, right? That's kissing the highs almost.
So if it goes above those highs, I might buy some call spreads in that. Do you guys know who a chartist named Keith Kern is on Twitter?
No.
Shit, I don't know. That guy's made me $100,000 over the last couple of years. He puts out some charts, and it's like he's reading my mind sometimes. And I've thanked him, and I've told him I owe him dinner. But sometimes I don't know, like if he likes to talk about stuff. But he's a great chartist, and he gave me this again. One of these breakouts. I think it's the one from before November. And I bought it on that.
What's his Twitter handle?
I can't remember. Keith Kern is his name. I'll find it. Bobby, you asked the next question because he deserves to be talked about. He's really good. Oh, but anyway, so people who are watching too, again, I don't recommend stocks at all. My licensing is for futures, but you guys know I look at charts all the time. If we settle above today's wick tomorrow, to me, I think that this looks like another run higher. So,
but I would say the same thing, just so people understand. I'm not necessarily suggesting that anybody go out and buy these names. You're asking me what I'm looking at.
Yep.
This is what I'm looking at from my own risk profile and portfolio. I'm not suggesting that anybody follow me at all.
I'm going to go back to XLV real quick, Kenny, if I could, because I'm actually asking for your advice, friend to friend, on this, and I'm asking about politics here. So you're not screwing your licensing. One thing I like to see, all right, and I'm going to zoom in here so people can see exactly what I'm talking about. You already saw the rally that we've gotten from the lows, right?
Yeah.
We got to close above the 200. Now the 200 is flat here, so I don't
Yeah.
care so much about it, but you could see it's turning up, okay?
Yeah.
The 50 has turned up, and these are the 8 and the 21, and I use those something that me and Mike Arnold call a rotation zone. So there's two things here. We get a close above the 200 and then a move back down below it. Another close, and this to me is a retest, right?
Yep.
And it
Yep.
popped back up, and now it basically made a new closing high. The
Yeah,
second
popped up and through. Yeah.
yeah. So it retested and then said, nope, yep, that's where I was supposed to be. Right. Then there's a second thing, the part of the way that we use this rotation zone. When I get price going into a rotation zone, so the 8 and the 21 crossed here, meaning the 8 crossed above the 21. These are exponential moving averages. Okay.
Yep.
And you see them widening apart and angling up. Right.
Yep.
That means to me, I'm looking for the price to enter and again rally above. And what's my signal for that? I just kind of do a best fit trend line once I get an entry into it. So once this low kind of touched into it and this low touched into it, I draw this trend line. The second I get a close above, I'm free to buy. Okay. So to me, this healthcare call is consistent technically. Now, on a fundamental level and a political level, one of the things that President Trump has not started to tackle yet is healthcare. Right. He went right for the low-hanging fruit, which is all the things that fall under the executive branch, right? Pulling out of the agreements, going after the Gaza Strip versus Israel thing, or I should say the Hamas versus Israel. I assume he's working on Russia, Ukraine. Oh, there's been a ceasefire there as well. At some point, he's going to tackle healthcare. On a political side, do either one of you know what would be my risk in this healthcare long from the current president?
Kenny?
So I do think he's going if he goes after it, I think he will struggle like he struggled the last time. Because I think healthcare clearly is going to be an issue that a lot of congressmen and senators are going to hear from their constituents about. And so I do think he'll struggle. I don't use Obamacare and all that stuff, but people need healthcare, right? And so there's no doubt about it. So I think he's going to struggle if he tries to, get rid of it, he tries to redesign it, unless they can redesign it in such a way that it's so obviously better than what it currently is. So I think that's the risk, right?
Can I answer that question too, Bob?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the answer is I don't have the foggiest what it would mean when Donald Trump, but no, there's a finish here. Just I'll tie it up. I don't have the foggiest what it means if he turns his focus to the healthcare industry. I don't know if it'd be good for them or bad for them. I assume bad. But when I look at that chart, I can tell you that a lot of real smart money is saying that Kenny's right. And that's why the technical pattern overrides. And that's how I usually will
wait.
sectors.
Can you just repeat what you just said? I just want to make sure everybody heard it.
Yes, I think that Kenny's right. Okay, good. I always say good things about you.
And the funny thing about what you just said is a lot of people that sort of bemoan technical analysis, they're wrong because it's just the price representative of what the mob is doing.
It's what the mob is doing. The mob sometimes is wrong, but oftentimes it's not. Let's take a quick timeout because I do want to tell you guys about a special offer from Tradier. By the way, we've had some option gurus on this show. And the second we mentioned Tradier Pro, they're like, oh yeah, it's the only thing I'd ever use to price options, to trade options. You guys can get it free for 3 months. Absolutely no obligation. All we want you to do is try it. That's the beauty of it. It is free. You can cancel it. You will be amazed at the level of sophistication and what this thing can do for you. So just click on the link. It's Tradier Pro. It's an options trading strategy. It's fantastic. Anyway, that's my pitch. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Can I ask you a question about that? Because I'm unfamiliar with it because I don't trade options myself, but I want to ask you a question. is that geared towards professional traders, or could somebody that's just learning about option trading trade on that platform?
Both.
Both.
I think it goes from the beginners to it has everything. It's really a comprehensive system that's pretty amazing.
Okay,
One of the
that's
guys, his name is Lex, that helped develop it, was like a high-end market maker, and he knows more about options than I could ever learn. And he was one of the guys who helped design it. But then also they have a really good education section on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So-
Lex likes his bourbon too, which is a
does.
nice thing. Yeah. To make him an offer they can't refuse. It's stock chart says he's Italian too. His name is Remo. He's a pal. He's
Yeah,
a
he's
good
Uh,
man.
guy.
Yeah, Remo, you could be part of La Casa NASDAQ as well.
Yeah.
The mafia, there's no mafia. Just it's a couple of guys having a spaghetti
Guys
dinner.
get together. It's a social club. So these are comments that I neglected to put up. The flag pennant, I assume, is what he was pointing out on the NASDAQ, and that's fair
And the
enough.
Mag 7.
Yeah, and the Mag 7. And then he said, we're descending channel, because that's what I was going to ask about. I put in a downward sloping trend line there as well, which leads me to believe it may break out down, but that didn't deviate from the straddle conversation that we were having.
No,
And then this
when
one,
I see it too, I would look for it to break out up, because there is the downside channel in connection with the pennant. But if it breaks out up, it's cleaner. So I'd like put it in the, call me if it trades X level when it's breaking out of that.
okay. I actually want to ask Kenny about this particular comment here from its stock chart. Alphabet spending, good news for NVIDIA. Is all tech spending good news for NVIDIA in general?
Well, listen, I do think I love NVIDIA. Let's just say that, right? I own it. The firm owns it, all that stuff. I love it. And I do think that NVIDIA really stands right at the nexus, right? And so I do think that NVIDIA is going to end up being a beneficiary of all this tech spending. I do. And I even think that I think that whole DeepSeek thing was bullshit. Right. I think they're using NVIDIA chips. I think they lied when they said they weren't. I think they lied when they said they didn't have them. I think they have them. I think they're using them. And I think NVIDIA is going to continue to benefit.
Are you suggesting that the information we are getting out of China sometimes is a little bit confusing and manipulated? How dare you?
I am suggesting that you should take everything that was out of China with, I would say a grain of salt, but in this case, I'd say, a whole bottle of salt.
Teaspoon of salt. Yes.
Yeah. It's crazy. Which is why, quite honestly, I have to tell you something, which is why I don't know if you guys invest in China, like directly into China. I don't. There's too many other opportunities for me, Europe and the US. So I don't try to figure out what's going on in China, because they'll change the rules at any moment. They'll take your money at any moment. I'm not interested. There's too many other places.
I had a really good friend that worked for a large New York subsidiary of China, and he basically said it's all BS. You just can't rely on any of it.
No, so I don't. So I laugh when people talk. They keep talking about, demand in China is weak, so oil's crashing. That's bullshit. Demand for energy is not dependent upon China. Sorry, I don't buy that argument. I think it's way too much demand coming from the rest of the world, coming from India, and I think there's plenty of demand coming from China too. I don't care what they say.
So we got a comment from Robert, direct question to Kenny. I feel like there's sarcasm in this one. Kenny, do you believe Fannie and Freddie have a big future? Is this something you've been talking about? And is Robert
I have not been talking about Fannie and Freddie. I don't even pay attention to what's going on in Fannie and Freddie. So no, I don't want to answer that question because I have no view on it.
Jimmy?
Are Fannie and Freddie publicly traded?
Do they still exist?
I don't know if they still exist.
And if they're public? Robert, I hope you're happy. You stumped all three of us, and we are three know-it-alls.
Hold on a minute.
I don't know. I don't think they're public. I think they were.
Let's ask ChatGPT if they're still public.
Go ask DeepSeek.
DeepSeek, right?
Yeah.
I should ask DeepSeek. By the way, for those of you watching now that rely on AI as much as we might, it's wrong a lot. Like I end up arguing with ChatGPT, Perplexity. Simple question today, like, did the three Fed speakers who were Michelle Bowman, Philip Jefferson, vice chair, and Austin Goolsbee from Chicago Fed.
Yeah.
I asked if they mentioned monetary policy. And it basically went to Austin Goolsbee spoke, and it gave me a date from a month ago. And I said today, it definitely doesn't. He definitely spoke today, and it came back with, oh yeah, you're right. I made a mistake. He spoke today.
Yeah. So I put in my
for you people.
I put it in my note this morning, right, which people can get on my Substack, right, kennypolcari.substack.com. But I put it that we were getting 4 Fed heads today, right, talking. Austin Goolsbee, who's dovish. Then you had Michelle Bowman, who's hawkish. You had Tommy Barker, I think, from Richmond, who leans hawkish. And then you had the vice chair, Jeffrey Phillips, or Phillips Jeffries, who leans dovish, right? So it was really a standoff because you had 2 doves and 2 hawks. And so I was curious what the market was going to pay attention to, because the market is dying for dovish. They're dying to hear that rates going down. So they're going to just ignore the hawkish commentary and just focus on the doves. I don't know. I have to look and see what the result was, because
I
didn't hear
rates,
anything.
and I have a question for both of you about rates too. So Elon Musk, I know I gauge this. The madder Elizabeth Warren is, I always feel the better that people like Elon Musk are doing. So I just think that she has an inverse reaction to all this shit.
Did you hear what she said?
Peter St. Onge came out saying that they're currently have effectively $1 billion a day in spending cuts. And at first I was like, wow, that sounds like bullshit. But then I did notice that 10-year yields have gone from 4.8 to under 4.5, around there. So maybe the market is saying, Bobby, you want to take a crack at that question first? Maybe the market is saying that they really can effectively cut spending.
I do believe that's part of it. I mean, look at just the amount of people that took the buyout, the government workers.
Yeah.
It's 1% of the workforce. 20,000 people took it so far.
Wow.
So that's a big number, and that's far. And there's a bunch of them that think that they're going to be able to, they called it something. It's like a malevolent working or something to that effect. I screwed that up, I'm sure. But basically they come to work and they don't do what they're told, waiting to be fired. Well, you idiots, if you get fired like that, you're not going to get the 8 months.
I hope not.
It's just it's like so nonsensical. I want to put up something Kenny typed into the chat here. Our own Kenny Polcari.
He's a lovely man.
Did you guys hear what AOC said about Elon Musk?
Yes.
Did you hear that latest comment?
Yeah.
Shit, the stupidest billionaire I've ever met. I'm sitting there going, did she really say that?
And she says everything so confidently. Listen, AOC, you answered a casting call. You're an eloquent bartender. It's really the truth. It's so wild. Yeah. Here we go.
All right. So as of February, this is from our own Kenny Polcari, rebranded as a Tradier comment. As of February 2025, Fannie Mae remains under government conservatorship, a status it has held since 2008, while it continues to operate as a government-sponsored enterprise. Recent developments, where's the rest, Max? Or Luis, what am I missing here? Indicates progress towards privatization. In January 2025, the U.S. Treasury Department and the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, announced a framework to facilitate Fannie Mae's orderly release. I'm guessing the next word is from federal control. The announcement led to a significant surge in Fannie Mae's stock price. It's part of our question right there.
And that was from Robert?
No, Kenny wrote that.
No, I know that. But I mean, the question originated from Robert. So he's obviously.
No, we asked if it was publicly traded.
And Fannie's stock is going to be publicly traded again. So to answer your question, Robert. What's that?
So it's reflect for orderly release from federal control.
Price.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fannie Mae trades at $5.90. It was up 50 cents today.
Yeah. So real quick, big RWB58, which Luis, if you could put that up, he put, you can buy the shares. They are in conservatorship.
Yeah.
And then Robert underneath that put, Bill Ackman says they're worth 30x once Trump sells them off. Ackman's been wrong about a lot of things, but he might be right about this.
Yeah. Tell Robert, or Robert can hear me, I guess, talking. I don't pay attention. Fannie Mae's not one of the names I follow. So to be fair, I'm not paying attention to what's going on there. But if you just look at the chart now, certainly since November, suddenly it was trading at $1, and now it's, it had this explosive.
And Robert, I'll tell you this, I totally appreciate it, because you are teaching us about this too. Because if you tell me, could you justify investing in Fannie Mae? No, they're a government organization. That sponsored thing, that middle letter, it's bullshit. They're a government organization. If you're sponsored by the government, you're the government. I would have never touched it. However, if we're talking about spinning them off, and Bill Ackman says that the parts are worth quite a bit, I may take a look at it. I appreciate that, Robert. Thank you.
Yeah.
Real quick, we got something from Widge too. Widge, Kenny,
It's
just
not
so
a
you
show
know,
with Widge not.
regular view of our show. Smart guy, right? Please ask Mr. Polcari, which is very respectful.
Very respectful.
Please ask Mr. Polcari's opinion about a potential sovereign wealth fund that would involve numerous classes of assets. Jimmy's going to have something to say on this as well.
No, and I agree with Jimmy. I do agree with Jimmy. I'm not sure that we need a sovereign wealth fund or that we should have a sovereign wealth fund to the point that Jimmy made yesterday, I guess, on Twitter or 2 days ago on Twitter, is that, you have a sovereign wealth fund that starts to take positions in publicly traded companies. They start to take big positions in it, and then they effectively end up controlling, right? Or have a say.
Right.
And by the way, the Republicans are better than the Democrats, but not by much. Everybody who goes into government likes a little bit of control. Once you get a little bit of power and control, you like a little bit more. This is a terrible path to walk down. Buying gold and buying oil for the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, you can make an argument that both of those are national security concerns, and I can sign off on those. Beyond that, to any other asset. And by the way, our government does buy corporate bonds. You guys remember they did start doing that back in the financial crisis. Correct? I'm not wrong. I'm not making this up or misremembering.
No, you're 100% correct. I'll give you another example.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were still going. Go ahead.
No, so it's not like socialism. It is socialism when the government starts controlling companies, because then they'll have an undue say. This is the last thing we want. I hope everyone who votes against Democrats like I do and voted to put the current administration in office, which I proudly did and would do again, scream when they start to do stuff wrong. That's what separates us from the other side, who just follow like hooded, mindless drones. We don't do that. Anyway,
I want to just read this because I like this kind of a comment. No thanks, you guys rock. Kenny, I've been reading your newsletter since I saw you on a bar stool years ago. That would get me to do it too. He's a handsome man.
I was on Barstool Sports with Large, you know what I mean? And they're thank you very much, Robert. I appreciate that. I hope you enjoy it.
So I want to point out one more thing, and I want to get back to markets, but when you look at some of the stuff coming out about USAID, it's a bipartisan grift. It is not one-sided, and it is bipartisan.
What happened today with Politico?
It is, but yeah, I just saw that.
Unreal.
Again, bipartisan as hell. It is not just the Democrats. It's not just the left. But to her credit, Trump's press secretary, I forget her name, Carolyn.
Levitt. Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, Levitt. She went out and listed all the silly things that the three of us would laugh at if we were sitting at a bar. But there are some right or even conservative causes, I wouldn't even name right, that are just, they're a grift, they're BS. A friend of mine spent his youth in Macedonia, and now he's here in the U.S. for a long time. He's a U.S. citizen. He said, I remember this from Macedonia. We'd get aid from the U.S. and the guys in government would just deal it out. It wouldn't be spent on anything.
Yeah.
It all came through U.S. aid.
Yeah, we shouldn't be doing any of that shit, because people think that theoretically it's a good idea to be helping around the world. It doesn't work that way. The government is good at collecting money to do good things with it, but they're not really that good at distributing it. And by the way, Carolyn Levitt, you said, I want to point out something about her. And by the way, this isn't an opinion. These are just facts. Carolyn Levitt, who's 28 years old, has a husband who's 60 years old. I agree with her. I think 60 years old is when men hit their stride and they are the most attractive. Do you guys agree with me on that?
Yes.
Yes. By the way, she's fantastic. I mean, talk about
fantastic. And by the way, you know that her husband is really 60. You know that, right?
I didn't know that, but I'm very happy about it.
Me too. Unless I read it wrong somewhere.
She's only 28 years old.
And I think she's got a 60-year-old husband.
Okay, let's ask Chad again, because
let's go to the monitor. If anyone's watching the show, can they confirm that? Which, by the way, I don't judge them. I don't judge them at all. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Listen, I think we're getting off the subject, but marrying your
great
age,
subject we got off to.
It's a great subject. Marrying someone your age, female to male, it's a fairly recent phenomenon. You go back to our old country, even 50 years ago, and the age gap. My mother was 7 years younger than my father, and she said all her girlfriends back in the day used to say, "What's it like to have such an old husband?"
Wow. What does it say, Kenny?
I'm going to put it in the chat right now.
There it is. I'm just going to read this.
He is 59 years old.
Look at that. So I finally
He's a
found
real
somebody
estate-
that has
he's
a,
a very successful real estate developer.
Shit.
I finally
But if you
found
read
somebody
it-
that's a larger age gap than me and my second wife. So moving on from that subject.
Can you imagine?
Why did we get? Can we get in trouble for just mentioning these facts?
Oh,
These are facts.
They're facts. They're out there. It's not like I told a secret. It's out there.
All right, Bobby, go.
Kenny, what's your economic theme right now? You think we're in reflation? You think we're headed for stagflation, recession? What's your economic theme?
So I don't think we're heading for a recession. I think we're on the verge of potentially reigniting inflation, and that's what concerns me. Is that because I think we've seen CPI and PPI start to turn its head up. You might only say it's a tenth or 0.2%. But the fact is, it's starting to turn up, and this is exactly what happened. I don't want to date myself, but exactly what happened back in 1979 when they prematurely cut rates because they thought they had beat it, and then boom, when inflation came back, it came back even harder than it was the first time. And so while I'm not suggesting that's going to happen, I'm concerned that they were too aggressive in September, November, and December. I don't think cutting rates 5 weeks before the presidential election by 50 basis points was necessary at all. And I think the data's come out to prove that. He told us that the labor market was so weak. The labor market is anything but weak. And so there was no reason to cut him 50 basis points. So I'm afraid that it's starting to rear its ugly head, which is why I'm hoping we don't see a rate cut. Look, again, at 4.25%, 4.5%, rates are historically normal between 4 and 6. That's long-term historical normal, right?
Yep.
The problem is there's a whole generation of people that came into this business in 2007 when the world was falling apart, when rates in this country went to zero and rates around the world went negative. And they stayed there for 15 years, and these people go, oh, my God, these are normal rates. So now at 4.5%, they're going, oh, my God, light my hair on fire. It's usurious. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
here's
why we have Kenny off that. Bobby, did you want me to give a comment?
yeah,
on that?
no, I have a
Like-
question for you, and then you can go to Kenny after
Yeah.
this. Here's one of my fears, okay, for the markets in general, is that I've been saying, and Jimmy, you can vouch for this. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm setting up a question here. I've been saying for a while that I thought inflation was not dead. I've been saying it since the middle of last year, okay, that inflation was going to come back. Jim Bianco said it before us that inflation was going to pause somewhere around 4%. He's not that far off, right? And then it was going to reignite. And then I started looking at things and I go, you know what? That's my theme too. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think it's happening. What are the odds that all of a sudden the entire left-wing mob says it's because of tariffs and Trump brought the inflation, even though it's been a possibility and a probability, in my view, since mid-2024? Yeah,
I'm going to take a crack at this first, Kenny. Is that cool?
Yeah.
So the fact that something I alluded to a second ago, the fact that they genuinely are cutting spending by now it's $1 billion a day and they've cut 1% of the workforce. These things are deflationary. Are tariffs inflationary? Yeah, if they're used the way he says he's going to use them, which we don't necessarily believe that for sure too. But the cross currents that are happening right now are amazing. I think Jerome Powell wants inflation to stay around 2.8%. Kenny.
Yeah, I actually think I don't think he'd mind if it ticked that even up a little bit. I think that's okay by him. Right. Yeah. And here's the other thing. Trump imposed tariffs on China in his first term when we didn't have any inflation. Joe Biden kept those tariffs in place on China all those years. Yep. But nobody on the other side made any comments about those tariffs remaining in place. Right. We didn't blame those tariffs on 9% inflation because it wasn't the tariffs that created the 9% inflation. So I quite honestly, I think the left has lost all credibility. The fact that they're screaming and yelling over this USAID thing is only confirms that story. They're all fucking nervous now.
But God, by the way, a lot of people hear guys like Kenny and I say this too. That does not mean we have complete trust in what you thinking is our side either. Okay,
that's right.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Josh Hawley, he's a Republican, right? The senator from Missouri.
Josh Hawley, yeah.
He's the one who came out today saying capping credit card rates at 10%. No, that is price fixing. That's a leftist notion. And I'll bash him and I'll give him an economics lesson if he wants to come on the show too. But that is asinine. Robert?
Yeah, no, the best thing to do is to put people in a scenario with their jobs. And I don't mean the government, I mean ourselves. Get the government out of as much as possible so that we can earn as much money as possible. So when somebody offers us a 30% credit card, we say, I don't need that. I mean, I don't use credit cards for anything. literally nothing. A long time ago, and again, not patting myself on the back, but a long time ago, I was having a conversation with my brother and we were laughing about how our dad used to buy something. He would save up the money and then he bought it. And I went, you know what? I'm going to clear my deck here and I'm going to try and do the exact same thing. Now there's emergencies. Sometimes you can't do it. You got things invested or you don't have enough cash on hand at the moment, whatever. But like we're talking about putting in a new pool, saving the money. We're putting the money aside. My wife and I actually put a certain amount of actual cash money into a box every day.
Love it.
When that reaches the amount we need, we'll put in the new pool.
Where are you going to go? You're going to go to the pool guy with this box full of cash and say, here you go?
I love it.
I mean, I got a guy.
I got a
pool guy. I got a sand guy too. I'll put the sand around the pool. I got a sand guy. Give you a price.
I think that's great. I think that's great.
My wife had it.
No,
Took her so long.
I'm sorry for all the IRS officials who listen to our show. That's not what I'm going to be doing.
By the way, I was about to tell a story. What's the statute of limitations? Because I didn't do anything wrong in this, but this was early on in our marriage. And a guy comes to do a big plumbing job. And you can tell by talking to the guy that he's a guy, let's just say. And he goes, yeah, it's going to be $8,000. And I go, how about 5,500 in cash? He goes, no, I don't deal that way. No, we're getting About 10 minutes later, he comes back knocking on the door. Yeah, I'll do the 5,500 in cash. I go, I'll be right back.
Hey, you didn't do anything wrong. He may have.
Oh, I don't
I'm
know. Yeah.
assuming fully that he claimed that.
Right.
I've
You
been
didn't do anything wrong. You paid
Tax
the
form.
guy.
You just
Right.
paid
Yeah,
it.
that's when he did his taxes.
We got a comment by Rich before we start to wrap this up. I just want to throw up here because we have to have this in a show with Kenny.
Yeah.
Oh, he wants to know what I'm cooking.
Let's go, Rich.
There he is. Rich follows me on Twitter.
There's
I know
Rich.
that.
Rich. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we love
listen, today you're going to get the chicken valdostana that I actually put in my notes.
Oh, I love that.
In 15 minutes, you can make this dish. You can,
So
if you're going to do
good.
it on a weekend and if Jimmy and Bobby are coming to my house, I could make this. It's very impressive. It looks fancy. It's delicious. It's not at all. It's simple to make, right? So you need thin sliced chicken cutlets. You need flour. You need salt and pepper. You need white wine, chicken broth. And if you don't use wine or cook wine, just use the chicken broth. But I use both white wine and chicken. You need butter. You need prosciutto cotto, which is cooked prosciutto, versus prosciutto crudo, which is raw prosciutto, right? So you want the cooked prosciutto, and then you need shredded Fontana cheese that you can take it in the block and just shred it on the shredder, right? Pile that up, do that first, and then just have it over here. And then you're going to season your cheese, rinse them, pat them dry with a paper towel, rinse them, season them with salt and pepper, dredge them in the flour, and then in a saute pan, heat up the butter and a splash of olive oil to keep the butter from burning, get it nice and hot, then sear the chicken cutlets on both sides, right, till they get like that brownie, like a little brown tinge to them, golden tinge to them, 2 or 3 minutes on each side. And then add the white wine and deglaze the pan, the bottom of the pan. Then add the chicken broth so they're bathing. You don't want to cover them. You want them bathing. And then take the prosciutto cotto, put it on top of each chicken cutlet, and then take the fontina cheese and just put it over the whole thing in the saute pan, and then cover it and turn the heat down to low and let it sit there until all the fontina cheese melts. Once it's all melted, it's done.
Serve it with pasta or no?
Yeah, you can serve it with pasta, and you can actually use the sauce that you've created for the pasta. 100%.
By the way,
so
I can substitute chicken thighs, right? I like the dark meat better.
Yeah, you can use thighs. Yeah, you can use thighs.
Should I pound them out or just use them the way they are?
No, if you're going to use thighs tend to be a little bit thicker. So I'd pound them a little bit to try to get them thinner than that, right?
I got to say,
I like thighs too. I prefer the dark meat as well. So yes, you can make it with thighs.
I got to say that I don't know what part, we've never talked about what part of Italy you're from, Kenny, but where the southern part, I mean, first of all, you go to a restaurant in southern Italy, you can't find chicken unless it's a whole chicken roasted.
Yeah.
That's number one. So when I see what I call my white friends putting, we go to a restaurant, we order chicken, they order pasta, and like, can I get some chicken in that? I ask for another table. I have to be moved to another table because it's just incorrect. Now, a lot of these, even the real good Italian restaurants, I'll give a plug here for somebody that does not sponsor, and I really don't care if they do. There's a restaurant in Naples, Florida called Trattoria Abruzzo. It's off Fifth Avenue, so it's not down by all the fancy ones.
I know exactly where it is. Yeah.
In the morning, when you go there, you'll see the grandma making the pasta. She's got this rollaway counter, that they have. And she's in the window and she's over there making the pasta, and she does the noodles. She rolls them up and cuts them. She doesn't put them through a machine.
Yeah.
And she makes all their pasta. It's the whole family that works there. If you ask for chicken in your pasta there, they'll give it to you, but you get a look.
Yeah.
Just saying. To each their own. If you like it, you like it.
You're not putting you're putting the chicken, to Jimmy's point, you're putting chicken, you got pasta on the side.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what Jimmy was talking about. Pretty
All
positive about
I don't
that.
know what we're eating.
But if you use the sauce,
yeah.
you can
That
use the
Valdesana
sauce
is
with the pasta.
fire.
It's delicious.
Jimmy, you asked me at some point today if I ever cheat on this whole carnivore. It's going to be when I go to Kenny's house for that friggin' Valdesana. That stuff is good. I've had that before.
No, I might actually. I like that. I'm going to rewind this tape and to get the recipe for my wife. Although my wife is a great cook and I don't tell her what to cook.
It's on my Substack, so it's in my note today.
All right, tell them where they can find you, Kenny.
You can find me at Twitter at Kenny Polcari on my Twitter. On my Substack, where I do the written note, I turn it into a video note every day along with other postings, is just kennypolcari.substack.com. Go in and sign up. It's free. Everything I send you is just free. It's out there. And you can also find it on my LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is just Kenny Polcari.
Also follow Kenny on X if you could. Kenny, it's just at Kenny Polcari. But I'm just looking at Twitter here, watching the stuff, and Mike Benz just posted something really funny. Actually, he might have posted it 19 hours ago, but it's still funny. By going after USAID, the very first week, the White House has done what they say to do in prison. Find the biggest, baddest, meanest guy on your cell block and sock him square in the jaw on day one.
Yeah.
I like
Pretty
it
funny.
a lot. Mike Benz, I want to have him on our show, and I know he's agreed to, but then I'm afraid if we talk to him too much, we're going to be killed by some underworld figure.
Okay, so John the Jerian just says, would you be surprised to find out that USAID used our tax dollars to pay celebrities to go to Ukraine to meet Zelensky? Angelina Jolie, $20 million. Orlando Bloom, $8 million.
Jesus,
that's what we're spending our money on.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Anyway, with the fleecing has got to stop, and it seems like people are finally waking up to it. Thank God for social media. Thank God for X. Thank God for you people for watching us. By the way, remember, Bobby and I were in legacy media for a long, long time. We want to create a platform where we can say what we want, give honest opinions, and have the kick-ass guests that we do. But none of it works without you guys' support, and you guys have been fabulous. Thank you for the support, the retweets, the DMs, any sort of feedback you can give us, particularly about how wonderful my hair looks, is perfect, and I will take that, okay? Actually, I don't even have good hair anymore. There was a time where I had good hair, and now I have sucky hair.
Listen, trust me, I'm going to be 64 the next month. I know what it is.
All right, well, thank you, guys. This is Trader's Edge. I'm Jim Iuorio. That's Bob Iaccino, who's not my sidekick at all. I'm his sidekick.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.